Alright, today we're going to be working on solving these cylinders. So I'm going to go ahead and help you out with this, and we're going to start. I'm going to go through and set some of these up, and we're going to solve some. And I want you to follow through and make sure you write down all the steps and solve all of these. When you complete them, turn them into the basket for your appropriate period. So number one, notice that this shows an entire line coming across. Therefore, that is a diameter. It's not a radius. So what we need to do, since it is the diameter, we only want half of it. In other words, I only want from here to here. So we got to say, okay, well, we got to do 10 divided by 2. Because remember, the diameter divided by 2 equals the radius. So that means my radius is 5. So there's my R. Now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and write my formula down for volume. So my formula for volume is V is equal to big B times H. So B is equal to, and remember, if I look at my base, because that's what I base the big B off of, it is a circle. These are both circles. And a circle, to find the area of a circle, you use pi r squared. So big B is going to be pi r squared. My R is going to be 5. So big B is pi times 5 squared. H is just the height. That's the distance between the two bases, and that's 6. So now that I got these two values, I can go ahead and put them together. Remember, we're going to multiply big B times H. So let me do that. So I'm going to write this first. I'm going to have pi 5 squared times 6. And that's going to be equal to, I'm going to put in my pi, and then I'm going to put in my 5 squared, and I'm going to multiply that times 6. And that gives me 471.2. I'm going to round it to the tens place, so 471.2. So this is 471.2 feet cubed. Alright, let's go ahead and set up number 2. Number 2 is the same. Notice that it's giving us the entire diameter, so we have to half that. So I'm going to say, okay, so I need the diameter divided by 2 gives me R. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that 14 in for that D. So 14 divided by 2 gives me 7. So that's my R right there. And let's go ahead. I'm going to shade in my bases. We're dealing with a circle. So we have V is equal to big B times H. B is going to be pi R squared. So there's pi. My R is going to be 7. And then it's squared. And my H, my height, is going to be 11. So now I just got to multiply these together. So that's equal to pi 7 squared times 11. And that's going to give me, and I'll let you work this one out on your own and write your answer. Number 3. When we're looking at number 3, notice it just gives us half from the center of the circle to the edge. So that is the radius. So that is going to be equal to R. So we don't have to divide this one because it's just half what we need. So what we're going to do is we're going to write V equals big B times H. B is equal to pi times 9 squared. And my height, which is H, is equal to 4. And now I just want to multiply those together. So this is going to be pi 9 squared times 4. So let's go over to 4. For this one, once again, we have an entire diameter, so we just need half of it. We just need from here to here. So I'll just divide it right here, right? That's the same thing as D divided by 2, which gives me R. So D divided by 2, that's 8 divided by 2, gives me 4. And 4 is going to be my R. So we have V equals big B times H. Big B is equal to pi times my R, which is 4, squared. And then my height on this one notice the height, if I shade the bases in, the height is always just the distance between the two bases. And the distance between the two bases is 23. So now I'm going to multiply those two together. So that equals pi 4 squared times 23. Whatever your answer is, that's going to be the final answer. So let's look at number 5 and get it set up. On 5, we have a radius. It's only half, so that it is equal to r. So I don't have to do anything to it. We just take that number and plug it in. So we got v equals big B times h. B is going to be pi r squared. So we have pi times r, which is 3, squared. Now I'm going to shade these in, just to remind myself. My base is a circle. That's why I'm using pi r squared. And then we need the height, which is the distance between these two bases. And that's going to be 12.7. I'll let you go ahead and put this one together and solve it. And I want you to try 6 all on your own and see what you set up. Be sure to break it up into these components. I want to see in your work that you have the formula v equals b times h, and I want to see that you have the b and h separated and have its value written, because that'll help you set up the problem, and it's going to benefit you when we go into solving for total and lateral surface area. So let's take a look at the ones down at the bottom. So here we have a word problem. It says, what is the volume? We're going to underline volume of a barrel. Notice a barrel looks like a cylinder. So I'm going to draw a picture. There's my barrel that has a diameter. Okay, so it has a diameter, so I'm going to draw a diameter on it. And I recommend that anytime you get a word problem, you draw it out, because it's really helpful. A diameter of 1.5 feet. So I'm going to box that, 1.5 feet. I don't really like writing fractions, so I'm just going to write 1.5 as 1.5. So I'm going to draw a line from here. The diameter is 1.5 feet. And a height of 4 feet. Okay, well remember, if I shaded my bases, the height is the distance between the two bases. Remember, this is my height. And the height is equal to 4 feet. So now that I've drawn it out, I have my two measurements, and I can set up my equation. V equals big B times h. Now, I'm going to have B equals and h equals. But I do have a situation here, because notice that the diameter is 1.5 feet. So I'm going to need half of that diameter, right? Because the diameter divided by 2 equals r, the radius. So 1.5 divided by 2 is going to give me my r. And we can put that in our calculator. So I can go ahead and say, okay, well, what's 1.5 divided by 2? So I can do it this way right here. Or if you want to use the fraction bar, you can hit Control Divide and use your fraction bar. 1.5 divided by 2. It's the same thing. You get the same answer. So let's see, 0.75. Okay, this is 0.75 is going to be my r. So we need pi r squared. So big B is pi r squared. So there's pi. 0.75 squared. That's r squared. And then our h is going to be 4 feet. So we need to multiply these two together. So we should have pi times 0.75 squared times 4. And that's going to give us our answer. Now, notice over here on 8 through 11, you're just going to be matching up the answer with the question. So if you look right here at this verbal statement, it says diameter is equal to 4 and height is equal to 3.6. So one of these answers should match up with it. So I'll do one for you just to get you started. So notice this does say the diameter, so we need to divide it by 2 in order to determine what the radius is. So if I do 4 divided by 2, that's just an example. 4 divided by 2 is going to give me 2. So my radius is equal to 2. And this says the height is 3.6. Okay, so if we go ahead and say, well, V is equal to big B times H. B is equal to pi r squared. There's my r, pi 2 squared. And H is equal to 3.6. So you could draw a picture for this if you want, or you can just fill in the information. We need to multiply these two together. So we got pi 2 squared times 3.6. Okay, and if I do this one for you, let's see what we got here. We got pi 2 squared times 3.6. And it says 45.2 if we round it. So 45.2, if you look out of all these answers, the closest answer to 45.2 is D. So I'm going to draw a line through D, and I'm going to say that 8 is D, because that's the closest answer to it. So you go ahead and set up 9, 10, 11, and work those out. Now if I move this up, number 12, it says 2 fuel tanks with the dimensions shown have the same volume. So notice they have the same volume. What is the value of H? Okay, so we want to know what's the value of H. So this one's going to take some extra steps here. So if they have the same volume, we're trying to find the value of H. Let's go ahead and solve for the volume of this one first. So this one right here, we have, the diameter is 3 foot. So that makes it a little bit easy on us. We don't have to worry about dividing it because it's not the diameter, it's the radius. So we got big B times H. Big B is equal to pi r squared. Since this is just half of it, it's the radius, so it's pi 3 squared. Our height is 8, so we just have 8. Now we need to multiply these two together. So we got pi times 3 squared and times 8. So let's go ahead and put that in here. So we have pi, and we're going to multiply that times 3 squared times 8. Now that gave me 226.195. So I'm going to go ahead and put 226.195. Now this time I'm going to leave this whole thing here in its feet cubed, because we're going to be using this number to help solve for H, and I'll show you what I mean by that. It said they have the same volume, right? Well, this is the volume of it. So if we know this is our equation, B times H, right? We got to use some critical thinking here. We say, okay, we know V is equal to B times H. We know what V is. We know that the total volume is 226.195 because it said that they have the same volume. So I'm just going to fill that in for V. Then I'm going to put equals. And we know what the radius is because it says 6. So we know big B. So big B is going to be 6, or pi, times 6 squared. What we don't know is H. So that's times H. We don't know what H is. So what we're going to do is use inverse operations in order to solve this. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to work out my pi 6 squared. Let me put that in here. Pi 6 squared. Pi 6 squared. That gives me 113.097. So really, this is 113.097 times H equals 226.195. And once I do this, all I did was work out this one. I still got my H here, right? We're going to solve for H, and this is no different than when we're solving for X. And remember, when we're solving for X, we want to get X all by itself. So we want to get H all by itself. And this is just 113.097H. So remember, the inverse operation of multiplying 113.097 times H is dividing it by it. So we're going to divide by 0.097. That cancels those out. And that means we're going to also divide this by 113.097. And that's going to be equal to H. So I'm just going to bring down my H and put this into a calculator, and it's going to give us our answer. So let's put this in. Let's see what that value is. And I'm not going to rewrite it. I'm just going to go back and hit enter. So I got this value divided by this value, and it gives me 2. And wow, look at that. It's an exact number. I didn't expect that to be exact, but that's going to be 2. So that means H is equal to 2. And all we did was we used inverse operations because we knew what the volume was. We knew what big B was, so we solved for H. The other thing that we could have done is we could have plugged these numbers in and used numerical solve. And if you want to see that, right, we could have said, okay, well, let me just use numerical solve. We could have went down to algebra and then numerical solve, and we could have we could have just plugged in our formula. We could have said, okay, we got 226.195 is equal to, and we could have said pi six squared times h comma h. Hit enter, and there it is. So we could have did it by hand like we did over here, or we could have just went ahead and set this up and said, here's the volume, it's equal to V, and then the volume equal to big B times H, and then just put this in numerical solve and solved it. Either way.